Welcome to my ongoing experiment where I interview amazing people in Pro AV, people on a mission to elevate their corner of the industry and share them with you. My name is Jeremy Birch, and I'm happy to introduce to you today Curt Hayes. Curt is the managing partner of Blue Dog Group in Florida. They not only provide outsourced technical labor for AV integrators, both pro and resi, but they also run a data management service for D-Tools, which, as we'll explain, fills a huge usability gap in that platform. Did I pretty much get that right, Curt, in a
Yeah,
nutshell?
I think that fairly well sums it up. Design,
Okay.
system design, documentation, engineering, and the data to support it.
Okay. So let's get started. I always love starting with a good origin story. But instead of going back and asking you how you got started in the AV industry, I'm most curious if you could give me the 5-minute story about how, when, and why you started your data management company, which at the time was called Blue Dog Data Services. Sorry, Data Services, right?
Correct. So the origin to the origin is you go back to 2006. I started a company called Audio Design. Audio Design was an outsourced design engineering company. So we think of ourselves as being virtual designers. Rather than taking your proposal notes down the hall, you would send them across the internet to us. We'd write your proposal and it would go out. Now, we did our work in D-Tools as the design engineering software that was the best fit for what we do. And in doing that, we had to manage a D-Tools catalog. So anyone who uses D-Tools or any data-based software application knows you can't write a proposal if you don't have data. I mean, what is data? Make, model, part number, URL, product image, short description, long description, unit cost, unit price. In our world or our industries, installation phase is a critical factor. When is something getting installed? Is it pre or is it during framing? Rough? Is it post sheetrock, pre-CO? Thus it's trim. Is it post CO? It's finished house. So along the way, I'm very procedural about things. If I'm going to do something more than once, I want a template for it. So labor was a big driver for us, and determining like how long should something take. And we've boiled our labor down to what we call the least common denominator. If I can apply labor at the mud ring level, at the connector level, then I don't have to think about labor anymore. I can say it takes 2 minutes to terminate this connector, and then I don't care how many are in a job. It just adds up a la carte. So we were doing our engineering work. That was coming along fine. D-Tools began to add additional capabilities, QuickBooks integration, mobile install, mobile quote, those kinds of things. And our engineering clients began to ask us, hey, you've just sent over this multi-thousand line proposal. Can we import that into QuickBooks? And the answer was no. At the same time, we had prospects to our design service that were saying, hey, we use D-Tools. Can you do work in our D-Tools? And again, the answer was no. So as a business owner, I'm like, well, I'm telling my existing clients no, and I'm telling my new prospects no. So how do we turn those into yeses? And what it comes down to is because of the structure of our data in terms of standards for category and subcategory and install phase and install time and standards for input and output labeling structure and dimensions and accessories, accessories being such a critical part to writing a proposal. The new construction bracket, the HDMI cables, the LAN cables, power cords in our database are an accessory. Power cords take labor.
That'll stop install dead in its tracks.
A power distribution drawing. So for labor and engineering purposes, we have an accessory for a power cord to everything that gets power. So the origin was, how do we solve these no and turn them into yes? And what evolved was Blue Dog Data, which was a sister company to Audio Design, that allowed us, we wrote a software platform that allowed us to license access, basically, to our master database. So what we're doing is we're hosting individual clients, integrators, D-Tools server on Amazon cloud servers, and we are replicating, in essence, providing them access to our managed catalog with a little bit of customization, light customization, we call it, on their side, or total customization if they're on our insert-only platform. So what we saw is that for D-Tools to run, you needed a database. We have a very good database. So for clients or for companies who don't want to have to manage their own database, they can overnight have access to one that we as a professional design company are using every day
Yeah.
To write proposals and do engineering drawings. And now dozens of other D-Tools companies are, in essence, helping us, if you will, cloud source that catalog, because now we get feedback from dozens of companies that, you know, an accessory fan has changed for Strong, or, you know, there's a new square grill for this Sonance speaker, and of course we can add those as accessories, for instance, down the road. So it's a very long way of answering your question. More than 5 minutes.
Okay, so that's very interesting. I want to stop on that last sentence you said. I think what you said is a lot of manufacturers that you maintain in your database are sending you updates when things change at the accessory level. Did I get that correct?
Well, we don't generally get it from the manufacturers, but we're getting it from the technician who opened the box.
That makes a lot more sense.
The field and said, hey, we have this used to be the accessory, and now there's a little yellow slip in the box that says this is the new fan for this, and it's like, oh, well, that's a different accessory.
Right. Right.
And so we get that kind of feedback. Likewise, as things evolve with labor amounts, you know, our labor catalog isn't static; it's ever changing as categories change and programming factors change and things of that nature. So it's the feedback we get from the project managers and the technicians that is the most important. The manufacturers, frankly, don't tell all the manufacturers. They're the hardest to get the information from.
Yeah, yeah. That doesn't surprise me. So there's always accessories that have a SKU, right? Accessories that could be bought separately that come with some products. Yes. And then there's the accessories that do not come with the products. Can you manage and basically reflect both within D-Tools? Does it allow you to specify between
I mean, for our purposes,
don't come with?
Yeah, as a system designer, if I'm writing, and I hesitate to call it a proposal. We don't call them proposals anymore. We call them detailed specifications. I mean, a proposal could be that I'm sitting at a table with my prospective client, and I write on a napkin, I'm going to give you 6 rooms of audio and 8 rooms of video and a theater, and it's going to be 50 grand. That's my proposal. You know, a detailed specification is going to boil that down to the makes, the models, the accessories, the network switches, the surge devices, you know, all the stuff. Think in terms of being PO ready is what I consider to be a detailed specification.
Got it.
So to do that well, look, we all have limited capacities in terms of what we can remember. So the less I have to remember, the better. So if I accessorize let's use, well, I mean, anything that we accessorize interconnects to. You know, I'm not going to get an HDMI cable with a Sony TV. You know, so yes, we not only can we accessorize, we can anything that goes in the D-Tools database, which is the one I'm most familiar with. In the D-Tools database, everything goes into there are 2 fundamental catalogs or databases. There's the product catalog and the labor catalog. Fundamentally, they're basically the same database, but there's a different way of handling labor pricing. And so that's treated differently. It's a little bit different.
You can't. You have to send it down a different path so you don't tax.
Yeah, there's different ways of pricing labor than the product, but fundamentally it's those 2 databases at the very core of the D-Tools application. So everything has to go into the parent item first, and then all an accessory is an association of one parent item to another. So if I put in a Sonance speaker, in-ceiling speaker, and I put in a Sonance new construction bracket, both are going to go in as parent items, but then I can create a quote accessory, which is just simply associating the bracket to the speaker. So when I pull the speaker into the project, it'll query me. So it doesn't matter what brand it is or if it's labor. So we have a manufacturer we call Setup that's in the labor catalog. So I have the physical installation associated with installing a TV or a surround receiver or an Apple TV. But then somebody's got to come in behind and on that TV set it up, label channels and tweak the color settings. And now
some may call it commissioning, but
So for us, there's the physical installation labor, but then there's also another accessory to turn it on and quote set it up.
Right.
Different than programming, because then there's yet another layer of labor that is the programming labor. So all of those can be accessories.
Right. Well, I mean, you can almost think of it as first layer, you know, your install crews make sure it's physically connected. then maybe
Yes.
your senior tech or your field engineer makes sure it's electrically connected. Everything's signals are getting from point A to point B where they need to.
Mhm.
And then the last layer, if needed, is programming.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is, by being individual line items, those can all hit a checklist too.
Right.
So,
Right.
you can send the go install all the TVs to Steve and go set up all the TVs to Bob because he's good
Yeah.
at it.
Yeah. Now, I would think to maybe a lot of other folks within an integration organization, aside from the technicians, they may be thinking as they listen to this, well, this is not really big stuff. I mean, you're talking about, little accessories and things like that. They don't really matter. But I've done my own research. I've interviewed a lot of integration companies and senior level engineers at those companies. And what I've found, tell me if this rings true for you, is that that issue of tying up all the accessories and getting all those little loose ends correct on the design side takes an average of about 1 to 2 hours per project. I mean, now this is average across all different sizes of projects, big, medium, small, but the cost of not taking that time and having your field crews be the ones to discover that you're missing that custom sized mud ring or that power supply that can only be sourced from Cisco or what have you, is at least a tenfold more expensive.
Well, I would say it's safe to say that 10% is lost to a very hard to define, as you note, soft cost, and it's both labor and the equipment. And I would submit that it's at least 10% that gets lost in just missed dollars in accessories. Number one, missed and missed equipment. In terms of, this gets into the whole business of who's writing your proposal and is it the best person? And the thing is, you get distracted. When you don't have a good database, you get distracted by the things that aren't in it because it's always start and stop. And this was a big difference in our design business after we started the data service, is that for our design team, it's gotten a lot more seamless because now the database is full. We used to have to manage the database as we wrote proposals like everybody else does. I'm writing a proposal. I need this model speaker. Dang, it's not in there. So now I go over and I have to find the stuff to enter the speaker. Now, okay, now I'll put that speaker in and now I need this TV. Dang, that's not in the, and you just find yourself start and stop. Yeah. So now, even when we get proposals from non-D-Tools clients that we're converting to do an engineering drawing for or something, in the past, we'd look at it and be like, oh my gosh, there's going to be all this data. But now, because our database is built by other companies, in addition to ours, submitting requests, and this is the fundamental difference in our catalog. We don't attempt, by any stretch of the imagination, to put in every item from every manufacturer. That is not our philosophy. Our philosophy is narrow and deep. We want to limit the number of items in our catalog to things that are really being proposed. So when you go to our catalog, what fundamentally is that somebody of the dozens, or probably in excess of 100 now, clients specify that item in our support desk. When you want an item added to the catalog, it's not add this price list. It's I need this James loudspeaker. Yeah, and we put it into the catalog because that's time.
Yeah, one of your other customers has used that before, so ergo it lives in.
That's what's in there, and so the database isn't cluttered. It isn't cluttered with all kinds of crap. I frankly wonder where all this stuff gets sold, because we have manufacturers with tens of thousands of available SKUs that have maybe 1,000 in our catalog. And I don't know who they're selling the other 9,000 to, but I've got platinum level or whatever, diamond level or whatever level dealers in numbers, and nobody's requesting those items. So I don't know who's using them. But I know for our purposes and our clients' purposes, it's helpful even from a system design point to go to the catalog and say, well, I know I need a HD-based T extender with audio return channel, and I can go to that category and subcategory and type in ARC in the search, and
Yeah.
2 or 3 models, especially when it's an early on kind of product, not something you spec a lot. You're like, oh, lo and behold, that loan has got one, or whatever. It's pretty handy.
Okay. What's the biggest assumption that you think integrators tend to make about D-Tools, maybe before they pull the trigger and start using it, that it's actually not true?
Well, I would submit that it's what people think about any proposal software, because generally every proposal software promotes at some level that there's a database.
Yeah.
That you think that I'm going to buy this software and I'm going to, like they showed me in the demo,
Yeah.
I'm going to be able to start, writing a proposal. And what you learn very quickly is you have a car with no engine. You might have a car with a lot of parts, but you have a car with no engine. And so that's fundamentally what our service does. It says, here's a pre-built engine, and we're going to install it in your car. So we present what we call an out-of-the-box, ready-to-go instance of D-Tools. And so I think the fundamental assumption is, whether it's D-Tools or the others, and we'll call them out by name since we're talking about the software we happen to use, but there's none that are really what we consider, and this is a fundamental difference too, and this is, everybody's got their philosophies about things, but our approach is it needs to be proposal and engineering ready. So proposal and engineering ready means I need all those fields we talked about before, the data we talked about, but I also want dimensions, I want power consumption, I want inputs and outputs, because in my system design, we started to talk about loss a minute ago. Well, one of the big losses is soft labor. I went to the job with a 5-port switch, but in the change orders, in the revisions, what was going to be, an Apple TV and a cable box expanded to other devices, a surge control IP device,
and now I need an 8-port
box, and next thing I know, I've gone to install the system and I'm short a port, and I can't put a splitter on a port. So now somebody's running to Best Buy to buy an 8-port switch, or back to the, and that happens all the time. You don't have enough PoE ports. You don't have enough rack space. I mean, you get out there and start building a rack and you're like, oh, I forgot they added a surround system for the loft upstairs.
Right.
And now where am I going to put the surround receiver? Or
and now the crew that needs 2 people has 1 because the other guy's going to Home Desperate, or like you said, Best Buy. And
nobody quantifies it. So if you're not doing some level of engineering on your jobs, I guarantee you're going to have misses. Yep. It's just a given.
Yep. No, that's very cool. I think you guys fill a very specific void left by D-Tools, and you're right. And I think one of the biggest pieces of data that D-Tools does not provide, they say they provide pricing, but really what they provide is MSRP. And then that doesn't do anyone any good for creating a proposal. What you guys provide is dealer pricing. You keep your customers' databases up to date with their own dealer pricing.
Well, we'd be very careful about their own. Everybody wants to think in terms of it being their own. But we manage first column, non-discounted, no program, unit cost, and list price. So we have to have, in the data world, you have to have standards. You have to be able to point people to something and say, this is what if I tried to put in unit cost based on the individual client level, that's a moving target day to day for every client. I mean, you can say I'm Diamond Sony, but guess what? There's program pricing every single week. It is a moving target, and it is a unicorn, in my opinion, to think that you're going to have anybody who can manage, quote, your cost. So what we do is to give you something to build a proposal around. We think in terms of worst case margin. Now, there are ways to manage your cost around ordering, and at the ordering side of it is where, in my opinion, it makes sense. If I'm doing the PO, my job is to maximize profit. If I'm doing sales, my job is to maximize top line revenue. Yep. So if I'm getting the sales price right in the proposal, it should be the job of whoever's doing purchasing to get my bottom line cost as good as possible. And that can be managed there. And I will say this, in D-Tools, structure, you can manage cost over on the QuickBooks side, for instance, if you're doing a QuickBooks integration. Yeah. And that can sync back over to D-Tools. You can manage the list price in D-Tools and sync that over to QuickBooks. So that two-way sync capability, to me, says, everybody in the business ought to be focused on their highest, best skill.
Mm-hmm.
Sales shouldn't be focused on cost. Purchase ordering should be focused on best cost and ordering and how many and that sort of thing. And so price is something everybody chases.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have it, but to think that it's going to be yours every day is, I think, an illusion.
Okay. Thanks for
we've had a lot of debates and a lot of debates.
I can tell you've had to go through that spiel.
Pricing, but it is important that you can sell the product and have a reasonable expectation of margin. So when I'm selling a job, I'm writing a proposal. Like I say, I want to see worst case margin. I don't want necessarily my client or my salesperson to see my diamond or platinum or whatever discount level, because then there's the assumption that, well, I could, I've got room, I could discount for this guy. Well, no, you don't. That's margin we need as a company. That's margin we've earned as a business that helps pay for all your benefits. Don't go discounting just because we happen to be buying well. Right.
Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Right.
I want to, with our last kind of about 5 minutes here, I want to change course a little bit and talk about something that affected the other business you guys have, the outsourced integration services. We talked in the past, you and I, earlier this week, about a time when things weren't going so well in that business. Can you kind of explain what the problem was, how you guys ended up fixing it, and maybe how other integrators can avoid that same problem?
Yeah, absolutely. So our design business, a key part of the design business, and that's still our fundamental primary business, is doing, writing proposals, doing engineering drawings, being a virtual engineering department. The data service supports that. But early on, we approach proposals the way most businesses do. Somebody sits down and writes a proposal, looks it over maybe, and says, okay, that's good, I'm going to send it out to my client. Well, what you learn the hard way, getting back to our earlier point, is that you're going to miss things. And so writing, in our case, hundreds of proposals, we did have, we had the inevitable misses. I mean, it's embarrassing. I don't know how it happened, but we had a job that was well along, multi-six-figure job that didn't have a theater screen. Like, how in the world did this get through multiple proposal revisions and literally into installation before anybody noticed that there's no theater screen?
Projector, projector check, screen.
Screen? What do you need a screen? You just shine it on the wall, right? There's a sheet. Hang a sheet over there. So that's a graphic example of it, and so what we began to employ is what we dubbed our second set of eyes. We put everything through a formal review, and the notion behind that is, well, it's twofold for us. There's a checklist, number one, and if you don't follow the checklist, I guarantee you're going to miss something. So you follow the checklist in creating the proposal or the drawing or the deliverable, and that checklist is things like, just is tax correct for the zip code that this job is going to?
Right.
Is it infrastructure and it's zero or a tax exempt? So, check the tax. Check your cost factors. In the D-Tools realm, and I think other software applications as well, you can have different levels of labor cost around rough phase, trim phase, et cetera. Well, you may have a different cost structure for a retrofit than you do for new construction. So, check that. Check for accessories. Go down through the list of your categories for displays. Do you have a bracket? Do you have a back box? Do you have surge? What do you have for control? You have TVs and things in these rooms. Is it native manufacturer remote or is it a handheld remote? So go through the checklist, but the second set of eyes, having somebody different than you come in behind you, your mistakes always jump out just like that. It's like, did you notice that you don't have a screen? Oh, I guess we could use one. So the review checklist and the review process, anybody can implement. Somebody can write the proposal and somebody else can look at it. Make it a peer review. But if you make that part of your formal proposal structure, that miss in terms of missing equipment and missing labor will absolutely drop, and it will drop in your favor.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's awesome. And in the show notes, you'll see this. You can check this out. But Curt has graciously made available their checklist that they use that he mentioned. Whoever's putting the second set of eyes on a proposal or even a change order, you can use the exact same checklist they do that's worked for their company, and just check the show notes, and you can find for the show, and you can find a place to download that checklist. Curt, it's been super fun having you on the show. I've really enjoyed it. I've been looking forward to this for a while.
Well, very good. Listen, I appreciate the time, and hopefully we've come up with something that's of use to everybody.
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. All right. I'll talk to you later.
All right, very good. Have a good day.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.